and thank you, AMA, for giving this opportunity to speak on the platform. So the topic for our discussion is role of leadership in crisis management. This topic and theme is very apt in the context of what we all are going through and what we have experienced over the last 15 months through the entire COVID wave. So courtesy the crisis and the challenges we have experienced over the last 15 months, this is the new vocabulary of 2020 and 2021. We have heard these phrases multiple times, these unprecedented times, uncharted territory, remote working, new normal, lockdown, and VUCA. And what do I mean by VUCA? VUCA is volatile. The word has become more volatile, uncertain. Leaders need to take action in an uncertain environment, complex. There is a constant, there are multiple moving parts and multiple variables. And the word has become more ambiguous. Ambiguous, something which is beyond our comfort zone and something which is beyond our expertise. So every new challenge tends to throw new things at us, something the rules of the games are changing. And that is what it becomes all the more important for the leader to navigate in this VUCA world. So the skills need to be changed. There needs to be new skills need to be acquired as well to navigate and manage crisis in the VUCA world. And before we delve into the topic, let's do one poll. So what, according to you, is the most critical skill for leaders? I would request all of you to cast a vote, request Pooja to please launch the poll so that everyone can participate in the poll.
Yes, sir.
What, according to you, is the most critical skill for leaders?
Just a second, sir. I'm launching the poll.
Sure. Pooja, request you to close the poll.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for casting your vote. So 39% of us believe that the essential, most critical skill for the leaders is lead in crisis management, 39%. 27% believe that strategic vision is the most critical skill. 21% ability to influence and inspiring confidence, and 6% each for honesty and integrity and compassion and empathy. Thank you for sharing your inputs. According to an HBR study, lead in crisis management is among the top 3 critical skills for leaders to lead in crisis management. And then ability to influence and strategic vision. Thank you for sharing your inputs. Let's look at, before the leader starts managing crisis, what are the classic symptoms of crisis? What is crisis all about? We all have experienced routine emergencies, crisis emergencies, emergent emergencies. What is so unique about crisis emergencies is that they are distinguished by significant elements of novelty. By novelty, I mean there is always a newness element. Something new comes, some new challenges with every new crisis. And these are some classic symptoms of a crisis situation. Threats which have never been encountered before. So something we experienced as COVID. This is a threat which has never been encountered before. A familiar event occurring at unprecedented speed. Example could be something of a cyclone which we may experience once a year, yet every time it throws new challenges. So something like Takuti. Plans and behaviors go awry, responses inadequate or even counterproductive. This is a classic symptom of a crisis. An emergent crisis pose unique challenges, changing equation, situation, dynamic. There is constant change process which is happening. The situation is always alarming. New data is coming in. And what it all leads to, all these symptoms lead to, is a situation which is full of chaos, confusion, insecurity, fear of the unknown, conflicts, changes, emotions running high. What is very important and what is of critical importance is that behind every crisis, there are human beings. And if there are human beings, we all are creatures of emotions. So there is always a crisis of emotions as well. So for a leader, as a result of chaos, confusion, insecurity, fear of the unknown, there are multiple priorities to be handled. And this is how the exact maze looks like for a leader. This is not an either or situation, but this is an and situation where a leader needs to manage multi-stakeholders and multi-priorities together at once. So right from managing emotions and behaviors, in managing emotions of people, fear, worry, stress, anxiety, ensuring that the business is running, the business unit is running, making decision-making with limited information, yes, no, multi-stakeholder management, dealing with customers, clients, if it is a bigger crisis, internal, external, supply chain, entire vendors, partners, channel partners. And if it is a small unit, then also internal employees, managing relationships and conflict management, because emotions are running high, managing these emotions also become important. And yet at the same time, maintaining calm and inspiring confidence. When the chips are down, jab sab aur logon ka confidence hila hua hai, how do you hold steadfast in that crisis moment becomes very important. So maintaining calm and composure, and at the same time managing self. The leader needs to manage self, recognize their own emotions, manage their own states as well. And this becomes important. So this is a maze, this is a multi-priority game, and which leader has to navigate and manage the way out. Lead, take the charge, and also at the same time bring the entire leadership together. So whether we are running a 5-member team, whether we are running our own setups, अपना हम business run कर रहे हैं, या whether we are running at a senior leadership, running a 5,000-member team, these are critical priorities which needs to be taken care of. The scale could be different, yet this all comes together in terms of priorities for leader to manage through the moment of crisis. So what is very important, what comes out of this entire crisis management is, and the pic you see is the legendary Warren Buffett, who says, what kind of a leader do you want to be? Do I want to be a crisis manager, or do I want to be a crisis leader? And there is a difference between the two. Crisis management basically relates to maintaining operational issues, keeping the ship afloat. If I am hit by a crisis, if my shop floor is not working, can I get the machine moving and run the shop floor? Crisis management basically relates to operational issues and keeping the ship afloat. Whereas crisis leadership principally deals with how leaders handle the human issues and how leaders handle human response to a crisis, including their own. We talked about how we are all creatures of emotions. So leader needs to deal with emotions, behaviors, and attitudes of the people involved in or facing a crisis. Crisis leadership also requires to be a proactive process where the leader is able to anticipate what's next and lay the groundwork so that he or she is slightly ahead of the curve. From a decision of profit and loss responsibility, which we saw in wave 1 of the COVID as well, we were trying to protect top lines, bottom lines, to what we saw in wave 2 was more of an existential crisis as well. So decision from a P&L responsibility versus life and death responsibility. And to sum it and to bring it all together, what holds this entire piece together is relentless communication, clarity of vision and values. Values basically is like a moral compass. Values is what helps the leader to decide what is important, and nurturing, caring relationship. These are some of the classic attributes of crisis leadership. So what is it that we wish to become, crisis manager or crisis leaders? So before we move forward, I would request all of you to please cast another vote for a poll. What, according to you, is the most critical skill for leaders to manage crisis? Earlier, we talked about critical skill, critical leadership. Now we are talking critical skill for leaders to manage crisis. Compassion and empathy, calm and inspire confidence, effective communication, honesty and integrity, decisiveness, ability to take decisions. We have 1 minute to cast a vote. 5 more seconds. Thank you for people who have casted the votes. Request others to cast their votes. Thank you. So the results are out for us. 51% of us believe that decisiveness is the most critical skill for leaders to manage crisis. And we are bang on. We are exactly right. According to a research study by Gartner, decisiveness, the ability to take decision, is the #1 skill. 24% believe calm and inspire confidence is essential skill. Yes. 11% believe effective communication is the critical skill. 8% believe compassion and empathy is the critical skill. And 5% believe honesty and integrity is the. It's not about an either or here. Yes, all of these are important. Yet decisiveness, the ability to take decision during the time of crisis, becomes like the most critical skill for a leader to manage crisis. Thank you for sharing your perspective. I really appreciate your inputs here. So I'll talk about 3 crisis leadership stories here, and how and what really worked for the leaders in navigating through that crisis. So I take you back in time on so what happened on Jan 15, 2009? So a US Airways flight 1549 took off from New York to North Carolina, and within few minutes after taking off, got struck by a flock of birds and lost all engine power. So the engines caught fire and they lost power. Unable to reach any airport for an emergency landing, pilots Chesley Sullenberger and Jeffrey Skills glided the plane to a ditching in the Hudson River. So they actually landed the plane on the river. And those are a couple of images you see at the bottom. All 155 people on board were rescued by nearby boats with a few serious injuries. There was a movie also made, Sully, adapted by this real life incident, played by Tom Hanks. I would request you to please see this movie. This is a very powerful, inspiring crisis leadership story. At that moment, the ability of the leaders, the pilots to take that call to land it there, it was an existential decision. And yet, what really clearly stood out for crisis leadership was decisiveness, ability, and the courage to take that decision, agility, because it was a moving variable, fast moving, time was of essence here, continuous communication with the ATC teams and the passengers as well, and maintaining calm and confidence. In spite of the crisis, managing calm and confidence and decisiveness clearly helped in terms of managing these leaders to manage this crisis. So this was a very landmark, very inspiring movie. Request whenever you can get access to, please share. I'll share the link also. Please have a look at this. This is a very inspiring leadership story. So decisiveness, agility, communication, calm and confidence is what helped the leader to navigate the crisis. We talk of another leadership story, which is crisis leadership story number 2. And this is something which is homegrown, very close to our hearts, the Maggie story. We all have seen it. We all have experienced it. On June 5, 2015, a nationwide ban was imposed on Maggie by Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. Maggie's market share dropped from an impressive 80% to below 5% in just a month. 35,000 tons of Maggie was offloaded from the shelves. What you see in the image is of the leader, Mr. Suresh Narayanan. He is the CMD of Nestle India. He was called to handle this crisis. And within 18 months, Maggie garnered 60% market share through crisis leadership. What we see is the image of Mr. Suryanarayanan, yet there were multiple leaders across different pockets to manage this crisis. And what really again stood out in managing this crisis was decisiveness, continuously engaging with internal and external stakeholders, multi-stakeholders, managing employees, building their motivation, giving them that energy, looking through the compassion, agility, continuous relentless communication, and stakeholder management. So this is one story which is very close to our hearts. We have seen it all, and I'm sure you'll be able to relate it. Yet these were some skills which clearly helped and managed to avert the crisis or to come back after the crisis. Another third story which I want to talk about is about a gentleman. On May, so the gentleman was engaged in a financial services industry. They were selling a mortgage insurance product in partnership with the bank. And on May 21, 2006, the sale of successful mortgage insurance product was stopped by the financial regulator. Market share dropped from 60% to 0 overnight. So this particular leader was a part of the A team of the leadership and was able to anchor and take the charge in terms of new product filing, approval, and regain market share of 70% in less than 120 days. And the leader I want to introduce to you here is me. And so this is about, so in last 18 years of my leadership experience, what has worked well for me in the crisis situations and navigated crisis is situational awareness, basically knowledge of the ground, what's happening at the ground, decisiveness, ability to take action, managing internal, external stakeholders, managing teams, holding people together, agility and nimble-footedness, continuous communication, and relationships. So while like I manage the crisis, I'm sure all of you are also managing crisis on a day-to-day moment. Whether we are leading a 5-member team, running our businesses, or leading a 5,000-member team, we are managing crisis on a day-to-day basis. Yet, what is the hat we wish to wear? Crisis manager or a crisis leader? And that's how we can upskill ourselves. So reflect for a moment, what is the skill we want to work on? Crisis manager or a crisis leader? So to bring from some learnings from these crisis stories, what are the role of leaders during the time of managing crisis? And that is what we define through 7 C's. And 7 C's is calm, maintaining calm and composure when the other chips are down. This is a very essential role of a leader during the time of crisis. Maintaining equanimity, maintaining calm, and inspiring confidence is a critical role of a leader in crisis. Confidence building, inspiring confidence, helping people sail through the crisis, helping them that this too shall pass, we are in this together, is another critical role of a leader. Communicate, relentless communication across the levels, keeping and maintaining a fine balance between just sharing enough is critical role of a leader in crisis. Collaborate. The leader needs to know that he or she cannot run the ship on its own or alone. Distribution of power, sharing of power, creating their A team to manage the crisis, creating different decision makers at different levels. Collaboration becomes critical element in terms of navigating crisis. Community. The role of a leader is also to build community so that people can come and share experiences. What we saw during the time of crisis, during the time of COVID, was also that we are all in this same together. Everyone got impacted. So shared experiences help us sail through challenges better. So creating a community, and so that positive messages can also be amplified. So community also becomes an important role of a leader. Compassion, empathy, looking through someone else's lenses, handling those human issues better, managing, understanding your emotion, understanding others' emotions becomes another role of a leader in navigating crisis. And last but not the least, courage. Courage to take action, courage to take decision with limited information. If the decision goes wrong, courage to take another decision. So these are very, very 7 important roles of a leader in crisis. Calm, maintaining calm and composure, confidence, inspiring confidence, communication, collaboration, community for shared experiences, compassion and empathy, and courage. So these are 7 roles of a leader in crisis. What is the typical crisis response of a leader in crisis management? So this is a repetitive cycle, starting from situational awareness, gathering information and facts, what's happening on the ground, be connected with the ground so that there is an information flow which is constantly happening, improvise and agile. If your critical action plan is not working, plan A is not working, how do we improvise and create a plan B? Agility along with it, creativity and adaptability in terms of creative solutioning. A lot of the challenges bring in, a lot of the crisis moments bring in new challenges. So the same template which worked last time may not work this year. So how do we go about doing creative solutioning and adaptable to the new solution? Decisiveness becomes critical in terms of the entire crisis response. You also casted your vote, and decisiveness is the #1 skill. So take courage to take decision with limited information. If any decision goes wrong, take another decision. Decisiveness leading to action orientation, take action so that a feedback loops get into in motion. Keep coming, you take particular action, get feedback whether it's working or not. Communication with all stakeholders and reevaluate what is working and what needs to be done differently. So this is a constant loop from a crisis response mechanism, situational awareness, improvise and agile, creativity and adaptability, decisiveness leading to action, communication with all multi-stakeholders, reevaluate the situation, and then flow back into the loop again. Another thing which is very important for leader in crisis is to manage IQ, EQ, and AQ. So a lot of us would have heard about IQ, some of us EQ. There is another terminology being introduced now is AQ. What is IQ? IQ is our intelligent quotient, our ability, basically our cognitive thinking, our ability to reason, our competency. Emotional quotient refers to our ability to recognize our emotions, understand our emotions, self-awareness, and the ability to understand others' emotions. This is becoming a critical skill for leadership. And AQ, which is adversity quotient, the resilience, our ability to bounce back, our ability, our coping mechanisms, our ability to sail through difficult times. So for a leader in crisis, what needs to be managed very well is IQ, EQ, and AQ, maintaining a fine balance between all three to help navigate the crisis. The true test of leadership is how well you function in a crisis, Brian Tracy. And this is so apt and true. The leadership get tested during the moment of crisis. That's the moment of truth as well. We talked about the critical strengths. Let's look at your strengths. What, according to you, is your strength as a leader, which has helped you in managing crisis situation? I request you to please reply in the chat box. What, according to you, is your strength as a leader, which has helped you in managing crisis situation?
Kindly post your answers in the chat box. So, sir, few of the response we have received are communication, collaboration, effective communication and collaboration, risk, confidence, passion, planning.
Thank you. Thank you, Pooja. Yeah.
Calmness, teamwork and integrity, creativity, forecasting, resilience,
Sure.
and out of box thinking. These are the responses which we have received so far.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Manish, for bringing the aspect of passion. Thank you, Harshpal, for influencing people. Bharat, for effective communication and emotional quotient. Yes, EQ is very important. Anuj Bhatia for resilience, creativity, thinking out of the box. Rakesh. Sona, calmness and effective communication. Shashmit did a call out from collaboration perspective, confidence, effective communication and problem and collaboration. Akash mentioned problem solving, collaboration, communication. Ravi mentioned emotional intelligence. Yes, EI is very, very important, and that's what we talked through emotional quotient as well. Thank you for your responses. So these are critical strengths, and congratulations to all of you for exhibiting these strengths in crisis situations. Reflect on what more skills do you need to develop, and that's what we'll talk through. So what is important as a leader at the time of crisis are critical 4 behaviors. And what are those 4 behaviors? Decide with speed over precision. Know what are the smart trade-offs. What is it that I'm willing to let go, yet need to take action, because that's how something will get into motion. So decide with speed over precision. It is very important for a leader at this point of time is also not to punish honest mistakes. Let people commit mistakes, because if you will not let them commit mistakes, there'll be less of action. During the time of crisis, yes, planning is important, but subsequent action is equally important. So take decision, adapt boldly, decide what to do and what not to do. Leader needs to accept that they may not be knowing all the answers, and which is okay. It is okay not to be okay as well. Strength of build in direct connections with the front line. So adaptation, adaptability, flexibility, agility, being open to creative solutioning. This is another behavior, critical behavior. Reliably deliver. It is very important for a leader to take personal ownership and build accountability. Staying alert and aligned on daily dashboard of activities, and keeping mind and body in fighting shape. This is important for a leader to manage their calm and composure and inspire confidence. So self-care is equally important in addition to taking personal responsibility. So for a leader, it is very important to being visible there, being out there. We are not talking show off there, but showcasing or being in complete control and charge of the situation. So that's another skill, that's another behavior needs to be exhibited. And engage for impact. It's all about human issues, it's all about emotions. So continuous engagement with teams and with external stakeholders becomes very important. Relentlessly communicate, ask for help as needed, and collect and amplify positive messages. Positive messages give that power, give that confidence, give that energy to other individuals to sail through these challenging times. So engage for impact, decide with speed over precision, adapt boldly, reliably deliver, and engage for impact. I want to talk something about how coaching can help from crisis management to crisis leadership. So what exactly is coaching is? Coaching is partnering with teams in thought-provoking and creative process that inspires individuals to maximize their personal and professional potential. It is a non-directive way of learning, and it helps teams unlock their potential. What coaching does is it builds ownership, accountability, responsibility for action, resilience, self-awareness, and empathy, which are all critical skills for crisis leaders in pre-crisis moment, during crisis, and post-crisis period. So the leader needs to manage all the three aspects, and these are very critical skills. Since coaching is a proactive process, coaching works on leveraging your strengths, and during the times of crisis, it is what the leadership needs to look on. What is working well? Can I leverage what is working well to navigate through this crisis? So coaching helps in these aspects and helps in that transition from a crisis manager to a crisis leader. So if I were to sum it all together, bring everything together, how to lead during crisis is be visible. What is important for a leader is to be visible, be in complete control, take charge of the situation. Effective crisis communication. Communication is very, very important. Be decisive. All of you casted the vote. Decision-taking ability is important, so be decisive. Empathy, ability to connect with people, look through someone else's lenses, connect with people, amplify positive messages, understand your emotions, others' emotions become very, very important during the time of crisis. Be adaptable, flexible to creative solutioning, trying out new things. Even something goes wrong, yet take action and try new things. Be adaptable and being resilient. So how does leader brings everything together is what basically creates a crisis leader vis-a-vis a crisis manager. So these are critical 7 things. Summing up our conversation: be visible, effective crisis communication, be decisive, empathy, connect with people, be adaptable, and strong resilience. I'll close our conversation with few coaching questions for you. How are you prepared for the next crisis? Who are part of your crisis team? How shall you lead in crisis? And what are the immediate steps for your crisis management strategy? These are some things, because the next crisis is around the corner. We go through one crisis, we prep for the another one. So these are important skills. These are important questions to reflect upon. Who are part of your crisis management team? How shall you lead in crisis? What are the immediate steps for your crisis management strategy? Because for a leader, it is important not to plan. One is to plan, pre-planning of crisis. The two is how do they navigate during crisis moments? And 3, what do they need to do post-crisis? What learnings do they need to derive out of that crisis moment? How do they rebuild and reassure the entire organization? Whether it's one small unit, whether it's a bigger unit leading a big member team, how does a leader manage and handle all these 3 parts of the crisis becomes very important. So for us, for all of us, how do you plan? Please reflect for a moment, and then I'll open the house for question and answers.
So Mr. Harshpal Rajput has replied mentioning that with every crisis, there comes an opportunity.
Yes.
So anyone else would like to post their reviews?
Yes, absolutely. Every crisis, there comes an opportunity. And we have seen in even the crisis leadership story of Maggie, how it was turned around. And we have so many examples where every crisis became an opportunity. The present COVID crisis is an opportunity for a lot of organizations to look through their entire business models, to look through how can they work. So the entire business plan, everything is taken a sea shift during the time of crisis. Yes, Harshul, like go grab it. COVID was a word crisis. This was an unprecedented crisis which impacted everyone across the globe. So so it is equally important. These skills are important whether we are managing a very, very small unit, whether हम अपना business run कर रहे हैं या हम 5,000 member organization lead कर रहे हैं. This is what holds us steadfast. And behind this, what are the values we are living as an individual? Forecasting multiple effective plans to implement is most important. Yes, plan A, plan B, plan C. Yet, if all plan A, B, C does not work, then how do you come up with a plan D and take action? Competent, Bharat shared, competent personnel can take part in to manage crisis and to save assets is priority. Yes. protecting top line, protecting bottom line, and protecting your assets. Adapting to the situation, Ashish. Thank you for sharing. Prakash shares, should we call it a crisis in the first place, or we rather call it a challenge or opportunity? Yes, Prakash, we can always reframe it as a challenge or an opportunity. Crisis maybe, yet we can take action once we acknowledge it's a crisis. And courtesy, when we go through the crisis and when we take learning from that crisis, that's the time we start calling it as an opportunity. Yet we are very right. It leaves a thought, do we call it as a challenge or an opportunity vis-a-vis a crisis? Thank you for calling that out. Ritesh mentions, please be ready with calculative risk. It will help during crisis. Bhupendra, crisis situation creates a great team. Yes. Adversities bring people together. So a crisis situation brings sometimes the worst, yet the best out of the people. So collaboration, bonds get created. So adversity brings people together. Also keep motivating team to realize them in management. They are safe. Yes, we shall overcome. We all will be together. If plans are all we need, then there's no need to be decisive. Yes. See, Harshal, to expand your perspective, the pre-planning is important. A crisis action plan is always important. Yet it is imperative that if the plan fails, then we should be ready for adaptive solutioning. Yet, so a pre-crisis, since a new challenge throws new bit of rules, new rules of the game. So it is important that we pre-plan, yet we are okay, we are nimble-footed, we are agile to change a plan. So plans are required, but our flexibility to change the plans is equally important. Thank you everyone for sharing their perspective and their inputs.